You get to, I think, a much more frightening place where it's like, hey, let's all be racist Confederate goons and see where the chips fall and call it a day.
All right, Dave, we're going to ask you to stay with us, but we're going to thank Alexandra Petri and Ken Paulson for joining us. Thanks, both of you, so much. Now, the news of Williams' dismissal isn't playing the same everywhere. There are certain areas of the country where he seems to be finding strong support. Let's talk about that. Joining us from Raleigh, North Carolina is Bomani Jones, the host of The Morning Jones on Sirius Radio. And in Birmingham, Alabama, Paul Feinbaum joins us again. He's the host of the Paul Feinbaum Radio Network. Thanks to both of you. Paul, you're down there in Alabama. Hank was wearing an Alabama hat when he made those comments. What sort of response are you hearing down there?
People down here love Hank Williams, and they love him for a lot of reasons, TJ. First of all, he's an icon. He's the son of the most famous country music singer of all time. And he's done a lot. He's given back to the state. A couple of months ago, Hank Williams raised millions of dollars for tornado victims in Tuscaloosa, and that matters to people. And what people down here don't like are people like Dave Zirin making idiotic statements about country music songs that Hank Williams has written. I've respected Dave for a long time, but I think the statement he made today is the single stupidest I've ever heard in the history of this program.
Well, before I go to Dave, Paul, could you...
Do I get to respond to that?
Yeah, you absolutely will. Well, Dave, go ahead. You take
sure.
over.
Well, just it's a slap in the face to country music because it's a stereotype about country music that everybody who's involved in it believes in the Confederate flag, believes in oppressing people, and believes in the idea that comparing the president
Dave,
to Adolf Hitler is somehow a good thing.
You don't know what you're talking about if you think that's what country music is all about.
Paul, let's let Dave finish up.
Come down here and I'll show you around, okay? I'll walk you through the streets of Alabama and educate you because obviously you don't know what you're talking about, Dave. Absolutely no.
Paul, if you want to do your thing,
come on
go
down.
Right
I'll
ahead,
meet you at the airport at 5 o'clock.
Guys, it's a spirited discussion. It helps if I can
insult an entire group of people.
There's actually a large African-American population in the South, too, Paul. You might want to think about them as you talk about the South and what is or isn't offensive.
I have thought about it.
All right, Bomani, you're nodding your head over there. Gentlemen, let me bring Bomani Jones in. Bomani, I see you over there nodding your head. Won't you please jump in?
Well, on that particular point, and hopefully not to belabor it, the problem with the song if the South would have won, is that there's not a single mention of black people anywhere in the entire song when you listen to it. It is a Southern utopia, and you would have no idea black people ever existed in that song. So I don't find that statement necessarily to be ridiculous that he made. I do have this question, though. When the professor before made the discussion that, just this doesn't affect, or someone said this doesn't affect how Hank Williams Jr. does his job, he is absolutely a representative of the brand in this example, and he has attached himself very publicly to some politics that a lot of people find offensive and that a lot of people find to be extreme. And just because a lot of people in Alabama might be on the same side of those politics does not mean that they are any less extreme or offensive to some people. And when you call the President of the United States, quote, the enemy, and that is a part that Hank Williams Jr. never fell back from, then we do have a problem.
Paul, let's talk about that distinction. There is the issue of whether or not he can say it and be punished for it, but there are also the statements that he made on their own. What sort of reaction, the support that you talk about?
Well,
what is it people are supporting?
First of all, my parents are from New York. I happen to be Jewish. I lost relatives in the Holocaust, so I don't need Dave Zirin or Bomani Jones lecturing me on my background or my culture. I live in the South, and I'm proud of it. I happened to go to a concert a couple of weeks ago that raised $3 million for people in this state who lost everything in a tornado. And Darius Rucker was there. He happens to be an African-American. You know that, Bomani. And I'm just sick and tired of people from elsewhere, whether they're in Charlotte or anywhere else, making fun of people down here. These are good people. They're not racist. They're not bigots. They just happen to like country music.
Excuse me. Paul, you are not any more Southern than me. I was born in Atlanta. I grew up in Texas. I don't feel the need to prove that. I haven't made any jokes about anybody from Alabama. My mother has lived in Alabama for the last 15 years.
You're the one who just talked about black people down here, not me.
No, I'm talking about that song, which doesn't have a single mention of any black people in it, and is cast as a utopia, which is part of this neo-Confederate thing that Hank Williams has had going for a while. It's not everybody in Alabama that feels that way about this. It's not everybody in Alabama that has a problem with the neo-Confederate mem. However, the problem with neo-Confederacy is that so much of it popped up right around segregation as you had a resistance toward that. But nobody is insulting the people in Alabama. I'm talking specifically about Hank Williams Jr., and please do not misrepresent me as saying anything bad about my mother's friends.
Dave, you wanted to jump in
Yeah,
there?
please don't do that either, Paul. Paul, that's an outrageous statement. I mean, if you want to talk about my relatives that died in the Holocaust or my time in the South, we could do that. That's not germane to this discussion at all, and frankly, it's cheap and unprofessional to bring that into this discussion, especially trying to hear you talk about Darius Rucker. I mean, that's
you're
nothing to do with
lecturing me
this.
on what's
Paul,
unprofessional,
Paul,
Dave?
let me finish.
Give me a break,
Paul,
okay, buddy?
Yeah, I am. Paul, seriously, why don't you do a Google search of Hank Williams Jr. Confederacy and see what comes up? It is a cottage industry of Hank Williams Jr. and the Stars and Bars.
Dave, I don't need to do a Google search. I can call him up on the phone, and I know what he stands for. He's a country music entertainer. You get that? Entertainer?
If ESPN chooses to not have your particular entertainer
we can't do three at
associated
once.
with
That's
their brand,
about
that's
too
fine.
many. Bomani, you had a point you wanted to jump in with.
Yeah, well, he absolutely is an entertainer, but Hank Williams Jr. is very much so involved in politics and has made that a very public part of who he is and his persona. And he was on Fox News speaking his notoriety as an entertainer, certainly, but he wasn't on Fox News singing a song. They were asking him his opinion about stuff. So for us to limit this and say, hey, Bill, Hank Williams Jr., he's just an entertainer, then why was he speaking in a context that is not? No, he was not speaking as an entertainer. He wasn't on country music television. He wasn't on MTV. He was on Fox News.
Fox News?
Well,
I watch it on occasion. I don't do it habitually.
They are entertainers.
well,
I mean,
the point,
that-
Paul,
But he
That's
was
up to
not.
you.
But he was
Watch
not.
whatever
But
you
he
wanna
was
watch.
not. But he's speaking on a news channel and he's giving his political
But do you
opinion.
think anyone
And he has
watching
done this
there
quite a
really-
bit.
Paul, let me jump in with a question for Paul.
What's
Paul,
wrong with stating your what's wrong with stating your political opinion?
Well, Paul, that's my question to you.
It just so happens you guys don't agree with it, and then you start hiding behind all these elitist attitudes, which people from the South are sick of. Okay.
Paul, let me jump in with a
Paul,
question
I'm
for you.
as southern as you are.
Ridiculous.
Paul, when you
Ridiculous.
have him
The whole
on
you
making that
people
statement,
thing has to stop, Paul.
obviously from just this discussion, it's very clear that Hank Williams' name cannot